see her again?
That's the way it has to be.
Recording. Now recording.
Hey everybody. Are people here? So someone say hey if you're here.
Hey.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, don't everybody sound too happy now.
What's
Or
up?
it's crazy day. It's been a crazy week. Definitely a crazy week in crypto. Um yeah, how are people doing? People have questions or comments? Just want to share something? Anything's on the table for the AMA.
Hey, Josh. I got something to share. I was gonna wait till some more people got here, some of the normals. But I definitely wanted to kind of float a thought that I was kind of working on this morning.
Sure, just so people actually, when you talk about the normals, Willie has a Fox Foundation something that he needs to do. DeFi is working hard on a release with some of the engineers. So there's going to be some of the normals that are
Gotcha.
not going to be here.
No problem. No problem. It's fine. Uh, it's not a big deal. It's just a thought, like I said.
Yeah.
Start a conversation maybe. I'm glad that Miss is here because I know she worked on a lot of the governance stuff. And thoughts on that. So I guess I'll just start. I had, there was a couple posts over, I guess the weekend. I was kind of out of pocket, so I wasn't really paying attention to the timeline so much. But at the bottom of one of the threads, it was kind of some talk about governance and the one for one voting and how we can kind of ensure that the Fox token is being utilized to its greatest potential or value during the governance process. So I had some thoughts on it. I got some little quick notes here that I jotted down this morning. I didn't have a lot of time to put it together, so bear with me, everyone. Um,
What was the
Go ahead.
governance one to one? I missed the comment, so maybe others missed what's the context?
Oh, okay. There was, let me see what gosh, let me pull up the thing here. I guess it was on the gosh, the post on the forum, by a concerned fox or whatever it was.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yes, towards the end of it, there's a couple community members that kind of weighed in on ways that we could kind of experiment or change governments a little bit to try to modify it for the sake of representation and participation and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's what it was about. So, let me preface this real quick. Like I said, beginning thoughts that I had, I fully understand. This is going to add to the complexity and can have impact on our amount of holders of our governance token. And I'm coming from a place, so the way I'm looking at this is I'm envisioning the DAO as the overall product and what we can offer as a DAO to a broad, a global audience. I anticipate that, the governance process that we implement here at ShapeShift as a possible solution and application to additional DAOs out there. And if we're able to develop a adaptable blueprint working to address common concerns and recurring problems faced over time within decentralized governance and organizations, then that would be like a service or a product that we're offering to the global community of DAOs and Web3 and stuff like that. So, anyways, examples that that are common that we see frequently within DAOs, such as participation and becoming and working to become decentralized from the constraints of a small group of core founders. These are like kind of the premises of working this. So, anyways, obviously there's other tools we have available, like adjustments to a quorum and the rate at which proposals go to the voting stage. So, these aren't being discounted. I'm just kind of focusing on one aspect of it, just from these initial thoughts that I had jotted down. So, anyways, the gist of it is I'm thinking about multiple weighted voting processes. To break it down, I've kind of just threw together like three possibilities to start. One would be a proxy vote. The second one would be a lobby vote, and the third would be a contributor vote. So I'll break these down in a little bit more detail, and provide some small examples to which people can kind of get a better understanding of my take on it. First, I'll start with the proxy vote. So holders of the Fox or Foxy that have interest and or earn using the DAO's tokens. These have a maximum cap vote at 100K. These voters are not current direct contributors in the DAO. So these would be people that are holding Fox, but they're not contributing to a work stream or bounties or anything like that. One example of how this could possibly be utilized would be so these are proxy voters. So an example, 8% of the total users' governance holdings is counted toward a vote. So for a max vote of 100K, the holder would have to hold 1,250,000,000 Fox or Foxy in a single wallet. For these users, we would definitely have to have ample earning opportunities, and that can provide incentive for holding our governance token. So basically, these would just be people that are interested in holding the token, but really not so interested in contributing to the work streams or contributing as bounty members. They just want to, participate possibly in governance from time to time, and also participate in any of the earning potential that Fox or Foxy or stuff can provide. The second, and any questions on that from anyone? Like I said, this is very beginning stages, so I'm just going to try to go through it, and I can open up later for questions. But I did want to kind of just get through these just so I can explain the different aspects of each one, if everyone doesn't mind.
So I'm not sure you can cap votes like that because people can just distribute their Fox tokens into more than one wallet.
Yes.
How do you fix that?
Yeah, I understand the capping. I think it would be possible with possibly smart contracts or a way that we could. I don't know. Yeah, we'd have to figure out the logistics, and even if it's a possibility. But I understand always people having multiple wallets and utilizing it, and that's why 10% of their tokens are are used, and not the 100%. It's not one for one, and that would basically make it a lot hard. Point. What are you going to do? I mean, it's very hard to directly dissuade them if they want to go down that road. But there's some other, and we can talk more about that towards the end of the conversation. Lobby vote. So this is an interesting concept. Understandably, that within democracies, especially here in the United States, lobbies play a very jaded role in our politics and our governance. So I was kind of thinking of a spin on this. I don't know if it would be possible, but anyways, lobby voters are basically holders of Fox. I'm not including Foxy yet in this. That wish to exert a large voting impact in locking up governance tokens for a longer periods and at a donated percentage cost to the lobby fund. So basically a group of multiple wallets that can pool voting power, locking in a term of funds that is placed into Foxy, and then the yield goes to the treasury to be redispersed. So an example for this would be say you had a lobby with 100K earning yield, and then there is a fee, 7% of the fund per voting event is used as lobby funds are burned and donated to the treasury. So there's a cost for if you want to, form these conglomerates or these big lobbies and have and wield extreme voting power. It's gonna cost you. You have to put skin in the game. It's gonna cost every time the lobby votes, and it's also going to be locked up for a period of time to which the DAO itself is earning yield on the lobbyist funds, ensuring that the DAO does get something in return for these very large holders that are swaying our governance in certain directions. And lastly, I was thinking about like a contributor vote. So basically, in defining these as holders of Fox or Foxy that are current direct DAO contributors and have an activated, unique, non-transferable NFT tied to a wallet address. These voters receive a 1-to-1 vote ratio, but also have a max voting cap, like if it is possible to do that, as Mr. Nerdhair pointed out, and have a cooldown period for incoming um, voting assets, transactions that are coming in before being activated. An example I was thinking of this is like a max cap could be at like 200K. That's just an idea I'm throwing around. And a 30-day cooldown period for when wallet transfers come in. So if you're transferring Fox or Foxy into a wallet address that contains the NFT that's activated for voting, basically it has to get there 30 days before that Fox is activated, to be able to vote with. That's what I have so far. I know this is very rudimentary. Probably some of it is theological and not even possible at this point, but just wanted to get some feedback and some ideas. Just stuff I was batting around with myself earlier today.
Why would you put Fox in a lobby fund if it's going to cost you money? Like, what's the point? You could just vote. You could just coordinate with a bunch of other people to vote a certain way, and then it wouldn't cost you all 7%.
Well, as far as when you're saying coordinate in a certain way, so basically just get together and just decide, okay, we're gonna vote yes or vote no on this. I mean, that's a possibility in any of the ways. Yeah, I was just thinking of the lobby vote as almost like the lobbies could be not restricted as far as the size, so you could basically lobby 10 million. Why people might see the possibility of that is kind of I don't know how much it causes in today's governance process here, but a lot of times the smaller voters, it might only have 5, 6, 10,000 Fox. Their votes aren't really impacting big swings on things. So if they're able to basically get in these and like you said, Mr. Nerder, obviously they could try to organize and be like, oh, okay guys, let's all vote this way. But in reality, it's a lot harder sometimes to get on the page and get everyone voting the same way. If governance is done right, where we're not signaling to each other what we want to intend to vote, and we're not basically leading others to different decisions because you're influential Fox holder or something like that. But I know that happens, so yeah, I'm not saying this is totally a good solution. I'm just throwing ideas out there, Mr. Nerdhair. So yeah, pick it to death, kill it. I don't mind. I'm just talking here.
Well, if we could, I don't think this is possible, but if we were able to if we had a Sybil resistant identity function, if we were able to assign balances to people and not addresses, then quadratic voting would take care of evening out the differential in power between large and small voters. But I think the fundamental problem is that there isn't such an identity function that we can run without saying you don't get to vote unless you've gone through this KYC process or something.
Right, which is totally undesirable in my eyes. Yeah, no, that's
A
why I
few
was
things
thinking.
that we can do, or a few tools that we might be able to build on, would be it is entirely possible to buy votes. I don't know if this would be useful, but it would be relatively easy for someone to say, okay, deposit your Fox in this contract, and I'll pay you some amount of yield, and then that contract has the Fox and can vote, right? So you could theoretically, you could separate the voting power from the price of the token, I suppose. I think that only really helps people that already have a lot of assets get more voting power, though. So I'm not quite sure how you could use that.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm definitely looking at different thoughts here. So I appreciate the conversation. It's very tough. I know that this is not something that we're easily going to accomplish. Josh, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, one thing that's really, I think, could be an interesting step. I don't know if Snapshot supports it, but an LPX comment is the last comment in that thread from the Concerned Fox about quadratic voting, right? Where if you do have more Fox, it does make a difference, but the more people that vote, the more individual addresses that vote, the more an address with the less an address with a large amount of Fox impacts the overall vote. So it still makes a difference, but if it's someone with 100,000 Fox versus someone with 100 Fox, if there's a lot of people that vote with 100 Fox, that 100,000 Fox is not 100x or 1,000x everybody else's. That's just an algorithmic kind of way without getting too crazy with lobby groups and proxy votes. And although proxies are like Gitcoin uses proxy, we
actually have that. So you can delegate votes with Snapshot just out of the box already. In fact, I'm just realizing that whole thing I was talking about, where having you wrap tokens in order to do vote buying. No, it's way easier than that. You can just, have somebody send a payment, say, delegate your votes to me. And if you do, I'll kick you back some money. And then you could just do it without even moving, funds around.
You wouldn't need to kick somebody back. Hopefully, guess
if you were trying to set up a system where you bought votes, then
how would the person? So let's say, Mr. Nerdhair, I'm gonna buy some of your voting rights. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna delegate 1,000 Fox to me, and I'm gonna pay you $10 for it.
Sure.
If we did that today,
mm-hmm.
What would stop you from undelegating tomorrow?
So nothing except you not paying me. Essentially, what you would, if you were engineering a solution to allow vote buying, the way you would probably set it up is that you would pay me some amount per vote, maybe, that was effective on a particular snapshot. So if the registry of delegations is public, and just like everything here. And so, you could say, as of this block, this amount of votes were delegated to, my quote unquote lobby address or something. And then you could, work back from there and send out whatever payments you needed to incentivize people to delegate funds. I'm not saying that's necessarily a thing that we should encourage, but it's something that is part of the system and we can't stop.
Right. So delegating is already available to people. That's good.
And as far as quadratic voting, you mentioned if it's possible on Snapshot, it is built into Snapshot and possible, with the caveat that it's not very useful if you can't be sure that whales hold their stuff in a single address, because they'll be incentivized to break it up into smaller addresses so that they have more voting power. Quadratic funding. So I have thought before that if you could theoretically solve that by creating a countervailing pressure to hold everything in a single account, probably by paying the money for it. You could, if you created an economic incentive, then you might be able to rely on that pressure, but that costs a lot of money, and I don't see it being an overall benefit.
Yeah, I mean, there's only like so much you can do to prevent systems from being gamed, but man, that's something to consider. I mean, that would be an interesting debate if someone wanted to start a conversation about moving to quadratic voting. It'd be, can you run simulations? I would love to see like what would happen to previous votes if we were doing quadratic voting.
We could totally run simulations like that, with obviously the caveat that at the very least, all former ShapeShift employees that have Sablier streams probably have one for employee and one for shareholder. And the shareholder one is smaller, but it means that there will be at least 2 addresses, probably 3, because there's probably a different one they use for DAO things. So, it's, I don't like to call it civil resistance because it implies that using multiple addresses is an attack. It's not, it's just how you choose to organize money, right? We shouldn't make.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's nothing. So we could do a simulation that includes that. I mean, the previous votes, however people voted for that, that would just be in the simulation. I'm not really concerned about that. I'm just concerned about. I'm curious as to if. I mean, we haven't even had a close vote, really. So there actually would be nothing to really compare to.
One other thing worth thinking about is that, like, I've noticed one thing that influences my voting rather heavily is the fact that there's a tally, like, telling you who's voted for what. Because, if 90% of the vote is going a certain way and I want it to go that way, then I'm not going to bother going out and voting for it because, it's already taken care of. Or conversely, because, if I go out and vote for it, there's an indelible record of that. And, if there's a non-zero cost associated with potential liability, that someone might imagine. One of the things I looked at around ETH Denver was trying to figure out some way that we could make voting anonymous and make it like a sealed vote sort of thing, so that people could, vote, but you wouldn't know, you wouldn't know until the vote closed, essentially.
Oh, so you couldn't see the result. You couldn't see the running tally. Well, I don't like that. I want to see the running tally. Let's do.
I'm not sure what's possible within the scope of Snapshot on that second bit.
Yeah, you and I have talking a lot. Let's give some. Curious for other people. Anyone have opinions about voting? Either how things are, how you think it would be better if they were different, or anything like that.
So here's a really dumb idea, or a really funny idea. You know how, like, on those dating shows, like, they go into a room with someone and they look in the camera and they're like, I vote for, like, John because he's cool. What if we had, like, a bot and you go into the voting room and it does, like, a voice recognition or something, or some sort of thing where it would identify you as a person and then delete your data, and then it verifies you as a person, and then you cast your vote and you're done.
Wait, how is that different than just voting on Snapshot?
I'm considering that being you verify that you're one person that controls those funds. So it would be, I guess it would be, I don't know. I guess it would hold people maybe to be more ethical with their voting. I don't know.
You mean,
maybe
like,
in terms of making sure
from voting with multiple wallets. Is that what you're?
Yes, that's the thing. It's like this is my one wallet that I'm voting from, or like these are my wallets that I'm voting from, and you can max 3 or something because you have the different Sablier streams or whatever. and you say, these are my 5 wallets. I'm choosing to vote from these 5. These are my vote positions. And then that ensures that only those 5 wallets controlled by that one singular person are used.
I mean, that the only reason that I can see where that would make a difference is if we move to quadratic voting. If, as it is right now, whether if you have 10,000 Fox in one wallet or 1,000 Fox in 10 wallets and vote with all 10 makes no difference.
Yeah, that makes. I guess I was going off the assumption if we did move forward with quadratic voting, but that was my only thought.
Okay. A way to try to mitigate the multiple wallets if we went that direction. I gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Does sound kind of complicated, but we think of all things. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just going to ask Mr. Nerdhair to get back on your comment about the limitations of being able to basically set maximum voting capacity for individual wallets or voting, sessions or whatever. The limitations from a technical standpoint, is it just a limitation within Snapshot, or is it a limitation that we could not put like a value like max? Okay, this type of vote can only do 100. Gets capped at 100,000 as far as what shares go towards it. I mean, is there just nothing ever developed like that, or I'm just wanting to get a little bit more?
I believe there are probably switches that you can toggle, or at least code that you could write in a custom strategy that would make snapshot count votes that way. The problem isn't that you can't use that method of counting. It's that method of counting will not accomplish the goal because it has an easy and obvious exploit, essentially. That being holding funds in multiple accounts. Fundamentally, the whole question of what actually is an account is really a lot less cut and dried than Ethereum makes and account-based chains in general make it seem. Right. What is a wallet, right? Is if my wallet is my ledger here, then the multiple account indexes, right? Those look different on chain, but they're not. It's the same wallet, same seed, right? Well, it all depends on how you look at it. And it's, not a easy problem to solve, even in terms of just how to do UX and how to present it to the user and how to write APIs and stuff. It's definitely not easy to say, oh, well, we'll just, we'll just, is slightly non-tactful, but, we can't just say we'll tax the rich and solve it all. I mean, I'm being a little facetious there, but it's completely understandable that is the initial instinct on how to solve the problem, because it sure looks like that would be the easy way to do it. But and honestly, if I had thought of any way, I would love to come up with a way to avoid the problem, and I would much prefer a system set up that did avoid the problem. I just can't think of a way to do it that won't be exploitable by the largest and most well-resourced individuals, and only actually prevent those people that are slightly, above the, it'll only deter
right. Well,
a small band of people that are supposed to be the allies of the lower classes, if you think about it in that sort of term.
Right, but if these voters are not contributors, they're not people that are on a work stream, and they don't have an NFT that's basically unlocking their one-to-one vote. Like, say they're just proxy voters most of the time, holders that just want to be involved. If you're taking, say you're taking only 10% of your value of your holdings, that you have in your wallet, is counting towards the vote and the maximum cap. If you're spreading that amongst 10 wallets, you're taking a pretty big haircut as far as that 10% compounding over 10, spreading it against 10 different wallets. So say you have 10 million Fox, and you go and you want to split it amongst 10 wallets, you're not getting, you're getting a very, very small percentage of that being counted towards the vote, because you're taking a hit from, splitting it amongst all those wallets and only counting 10% of that each time. So, I mean, there is a direct deterrent in that like, you would have to have excessive amounts of voting power to be able to, like, make it worthwhile to keep splitting it and splitting it and splitting it, and getting that voting power that you want out of that, was my thought initially.
So if you keep it all in one wallet and that only gives you 10% of the voting power, like, I don't see how the reduction happens.
So,
like, your 10% of 10 different 1 million wallets is the same thing as 10% of a single 10 million wallet.
it is, but you're only gonna, so you'd have to have the 10 million to split 10 times, and even then, so even if you had, a million, you're basically only getting, 80,000 votes to sway that, that vote. So each time you're expending, that million votes, you're only going to get 80,000 voting power. So it's like you said, it's not like really reducing it, but at the same time, it's making it a lot more difficult to sway things in large directions. You'd have to have an excessive amount of voting power to really, like, hit a vote, like, one way or another. You're not going to see a $16 million currently. You wouldn't see, and I'm not saying these numbers can't be adjusted, but you wouldn't see a $16 million vote one way currently if something like that was in place, because it'd be very hard to amass 16 million voting power. You would have to have extreme amounts of the treasury available on your side.
Well, what?
Hey guys, let's I just want to continue to make sure that this is a multiple person conversation, and I think the kind of the main topic that was first brought up by Never was this idea of different voting strategies, right? Other ways to spread it around. So I just want to see, does anybody besides me, Mr. Nerdhair, or Never was, does anybody else have opinions that you'd be willing to share about that here?
Yeah, I have two other types of voting that I've been experimenting with over time. One of them was actually inspired by Proof of HODL, which was a way of people voting with Bitcoin back in the day. There was a big block size debate. Essentially what it does is you vote for something by locking up your coin for a certain amount of time. So imagine if you voted on a proposal and whatever you voted with was locked up for a year. And maybe if you wanted to lock it up longer, you could multiply it, right? So if you lock it up for 10 years, it's 10 times the amount. That's one cool way to make it, when people vote on something, there's consequences. And I personally have been looking into burning. I think it would be pretty interesting if when you voted on something, those coins get locked and burned forever. I know one of the biggest things that Binance did to really pump up the BNB coin was as an organization, they said, "Hey, we're gonna buy up this much BNB and we're gonna burn it." I think it would be kind of cool, a way for us to get Fox off the market. For when people vote on something, you have to really want it, and it gets burned at the time. But those are two different strategies that I've been playing around with.
So that means basically that latter one, you're basically going to spend money every vote, because you buy 100 Fox, and to vote that 100 Fox, you then, it's gone. It's like you're spending that 100 Fox to be able to vote. Is that right? Did I understand that?
Yeah, totally.
Wow. To me though, that would favor big bag holders even more.
Yeah. And also, it would probably lead to a lot less voting, because people are not probably willing to burn their assets so quickly.
Oh, both of those would be less voting, but people would only vote on things they care about.
But the locking one, that's interesting though. You're basically just somehow proving, and I think I think this came up before a little bit. Someone brought it up, but somehow you just have to, like, there's a locking contract or something, and it has to be. So when you say you have to lock it for a year, just for an example, if I'm going to vote on let's say I want to vote on a proposal, so I vote on it and it's locked for a year. If a proposal comes up next week, can I use those same Fox to vote on that proposal, or is every vote means that the Fox that you vote at that time is locked for a year?
You could do either. I mean, that would be interesting if you can only vote with Fox that's locked up for a certain time. You could obviously you could write it anywhere you want. Proof of HODL with Bitcoin, the idea would be like, I wanted a larger block size, so I'm going to take all my Bitcoin and lock it for a year, and that's a vote. Yeah, and this was inspired by other people, because it is possible with Bitcoin scripting to do time locks. And that's not even with smart contracts, but with smart contracts, we can do literally anything we want.
Hey, were you here, Highlander, when we were talking about the possibility of quadratic voting? I'm curious what you think of that.
No, I'm curious what brought all this up originally, but obviously
I brought it up
for the same reason Mr. Nerd Hair brought up. All you're doing is letting people waste money on gas. And that's just detrimental to the network as a whole, to get around, to game the system. I don't think quadratic voting is a very good idea.
Okay, valid. What brought it all up is a forum post from over the weekend by someone who signed it a concerned Fox. Says, get your heads out of your ass. On behalf of leadership, I apologize to the ShapeShift community.
This all came from like the 16 million Fox vote that?
No, they highlight a couple things. The concerned Fox highlights 4 mistakes. That's one of them. But yeah, this then conversation, then there was that post, and then when we opened up the AMA, Never was brought in some ideas that he was thinking about to make the voting less advantageous to large bag holders.
Yeah, well, I don't. So that's the civil issue that's been in all blockchains from the history of the start, right? This goes into the proof of stake versus proof of work versus. Yeah, there's really no solution to trying to do what's individual and then what's network. I do think that it is very important for us to start taking quorum seriously. And if we want serious votes, we need to raise quorum. I think there's 2 things. One, it's we have a rubber stamp issue, and that means we're not being very serious about the governance process as a whole, because obviously we're doing this everything that's going to voting is being pre-settled by the oligarchy beforehand, right? And then the second part of that is, if quorum is so low that one person can vote with 16 million, and it just means that we need more participation from Fox in general, and we need to raise quorum to something that's over 16 million. I think that's my 2 cents on those 2 pieces. We need more participation, and we need to start actually using the voting to govern ourselves. We can't pre-govern and then only send things that we know are going to pass to governance.
I mean, well, I think raising quorum, that's certainly one thing that's easy to do. But I think having a lot of healthy discussion pre-governance is important. But I think it's your point that I think is correct is about like the rubber stamping. I think there is too much of that, and I think it starts even pre-governance with us right now. Like, there's not a lot of healthy challenge and debate about many proposals at this point, and I think that's going to change over time here. But yeah, to date we haven't seen that. Raising quorum is one way that maybe would create more debate, because it would force more votes needed, which then people who maybe wouldn't care would need to care, or would be encouraged to care to be able to get to quorum, and that may then cause more diverse viewpoints. So that's something to consider. Just raise quorum.
I mean, yeah, I did put that as obviously one of the tool sets that are available, as well as slowing down how many proposals are able to go to the voting stage at any period of time, just to give people more time to reflect and actually debate and discuss and challenge the proposals in a meaningful way. But yeah, to your point, Highlander, I know you missed the first part of it. I had, kind of threw out some ideas there, like 3 different types of voters or voting processes. I'll probably clean it up and maybe I'll do a forum post on it just so everyone who's not here can kind of like just look at it and give feedback. I'm not saying that it's in any shape, form perfect. It's just a thought that I just wanted to kind of get the discussion going here.
Yeah, thanks for getting it going. Never was. Let's see. So we're at like 12:44. So does anybody have another topic that you'd like to discuss, or a question, or a comment, or a share?
Hello. Yeah, I have a quick question. Like, is there any development still going on in regards to KeepKey and keeping the maintenance of that hardware wallet? Thanks.
Highlander, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So our work stream just passed. So KeepKey, as a private company, it had just funded $150,000 into the treasury. The treasury ShapeShift is going to match that, and we now have a budget. We have a full-time developer that is going to be stepping up to the firmware, and we're also have a budget for development bounties on the platform as a whole. So yeah, we have a budget of over $300,000 for the next 6 months to do very specific KeepKey projects that we need. I recognize your handle, Great Wolf. I know you used to maintain the old client. I think that's really cool. I'd love to.
Oh, you still remember that? Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yes.
happy to see you too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
look, context to that. I was a big proponent in early ShapeShift for us to open source that damn client, and I was fighting for that for a long time for us to open source it. And a lot of that debate is sort of what brought ShapeShift to being open source as a company and why the platform is now open source. But I think that was really cool that you just ripped the code because it's all JavaScript. You could just do it. I was really cool that you maintained it. But yeah,
It was really out of a necessity because there are certain things I needed to support and I wanted to see it in there. And I mean, it wasn't getting done, so I said, screw it, fine, I'll do it. It's basically what it is. So I just got something like still working. Yeah, that's where I was at when I was doing it.
yeah, totally. I'd love to get more to get you more involved. So feel free to DM. We're going to be starting meetings. Some of our main focuses is going to be an EIP 712 and getting more contract insight, trying to protect our customers signing contract data on ETH. I've always been a huge proponent for supporting more blockchains, and that is something that is still a fight on the platform as a whole to start getting. Right now, the KeepKey supports way more blockchains than the platform. So figuring out a way for us to release and more people to release SDKs and get more of the ecosystem building on KeepKeys that support networks and blockchains that it isn't supported on the platform. That is something that I'm trying to find a good way ecosystem utilize what the KeepKey can do outside of just the Bitcoin ETH that we have on the platform currently. But yeah, I'd love to get your feedback on that. We're working on potentially what kind of KeepKey client and SDKs and what that kind of ecosystem would look like, and any else in the discussion, and finally budget.
Another thing that you might be interested in, maintaining a custom KeepKey firmware. A couple weeks ago, we released a new update with some bootloader fixes, and updater allows you to load custom firmware right from the interface instead of having to do some sort of command line nonsense. So that might be of use to you and or your users. Check that out.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Thank you for telling me.
That was fun. That kind of felt like a guest appearance. A guest appearance. Thanks, Great Wolf.
Yeah, I wasn't kind of expecting that.
You're a celebrity. How about it? All right. Anybody else have a topic, question, sharing, appreciation?
I appreciate everyone taking this time out of their day to have conversation and communicate, our ideas and thoughts. Appreciate everyone who's able to join and everyone who's able to like speak and add.
Yeah, I ditto that. All right. Well, let's see if there's no one. If people don't have anything else, I think we could wrap it up a little early. I don't think there's a problem with.
Is GK even still here?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have access to it either.